Welcome. We'll now broaden our perspective, inviting André Leu to talk about services for climate change mitigation through organic, regenerative, and agroecological perspectives. Andrew is the International Director of Regenerative International. He shares his international perspective with us from a high-profile academic work as well as working on the ground with farmers, communities, for decades now, Andrew, and especially at the intersections of diverse farming systems. And as we are all aware, we are now talking about intersections and how to involve more of our global farming community on these paths to a more regenerative type of agriculture, which won't be one type, but a manifold of types, ideally really bringing the full potential of the localities, the vicinities, the bioregions to blossom. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I just also want to say I found, Rudolph, your talk's very inspiring and also very important, because bringing together agroecology, organic farming, and regenerative farming, these are the three... Sorry, is that better now? Yeah. Hang on, just make sure it doesn't fall over. Hang on. Try this. What about this? Okay. So bringing together, these are the three major movements. And bringing them together as complementary systems is essential. And we need to do that instead of being bogged down in debates about their differences. We have a huge range of issues to solve, which we can solve with these systems. And what I want to do is talk about a project that we've started to work with the three systems to start paying farmers, traditional landholders, traditional owners, for the ecosystem services of reversing climate change and regenerating biodiversity. So we'll start with climate change. I don't need to spend too much time on this, just to say that last year was the hottest year on record, and I think we're doing a very good job this year as well. And we know that the reason for it, or one of the reasons, is the massive increase in greenhouse gases, particularly carbon dioxide. We broke a new record this year. We hit 427 parts per million. That's the highest in 800,000 years. The reason for this is fossil fuels, but also we have very good data that the clearing of forests and the loss of soil organic matter is contributing just as much. We have to look at the whole system here. Since last year, we've gone up by 3 parts per million since May last year. To put that into perspective, in the 8 years from Paris in 2015, we went up by 2.87 parts per million. And in the decade before Paris, the rates of emission were going up by 2 parts per million. Instead of going backwards, we're getting worse. The emissions rates are rapidly accelerating. In fact, we've increased it by 50%, and it's getting worse. Now, the standard answer is, look, if we scale up, if we scale up renewable energy and we get rid of fossil fuels, we're going to be all right. We will not be all right. Why? Carbon dioxide lasts for 1,000 years. It's got a half-life of 300 years. And unless we remove it, it will continue to heat up. And so for the next 1,000 years, we will get hotter, not cooler. So we have to remove it. It's not just scaling up renewable energy does not remove it. We have to actively remove it. And at the moment, we need to remove 28 gigatons, 28 billion tons, just to stay where we are. We need to actually go higher than that to go negative. But just removing carbon dioxide is not going to stop us from heating up or change catastrophic climate change, because 80% of that carbon dioxide and energy has gone into our oceans. And it will take centuries for that heat to dissipate. That is the true story. What we know is that also a significant part of the world heating up is not just greenhouse gases, it is the clearing of forests and ecosystems. And this extra heat, we know, is fueling the increases in severe weather. Look at what's happened, just around the corner here in the Alps of Switzerland and Italy and the storms. At the moment, Hurricane Beryl, the earliest Category 5 cyclone, hurricane in history, is devastating islands in the Caribbean. We're seeing the worst fires in history in the Amazon and the burning of the Arctic. That's never really happened before. And all these things will get exponentially worse until we start cooling the planet. And one of the really important things is regenerating forests. If you look here, this is an example of clearing of the tropical forests in Asia and in the Amazon. In Sumatra, where they've cleared it, there's a 10 degrees difference in temperature between the cleared areas and the forest areas. In the Amazon, it's a 3 degrees difference. Now, at the moment, we've broken a new record of 1.5 degrees. We talk about clearing these forests, we're going to get hotter and hotter. Regenerating them cools them. And the example I want to give, which to me is just one of the most best, let's see if I can get this to work. Here we go. No, it doesn't. Oh, it's misbehaved. Anyway, you can see the blue area there. In the last 100 years, those areas of the United States which were previously cleared for farming have regenerated. Now, where it's blue, they are 1.5 degrees cooler than they were 100 years ago. Where it's red, it's 1.5 degrees warmer. Landscape regeneration of forests will cool us down. The fastest way to cool us down from the 1.5 degrees that we're warmer now. It's really important that we look at this and add this to what we need to do. So we need to stop clearing ecosystems and regenerate them. What we want to do is we're actually doing it. We've set up a project on how to pay for this, how to do it. We call it agroecological, regenerative and organic ecosystem services. And we aim to regenerate the climate, regenerate ecosystems, including agroecosystems, regenerate communities. And it's based on paying for the ecosystem services. So we pay farmers, traditional owners and land managers for conserving and regenerating biodiversity to cool the planet, carbon dioxide removal through biodiversity and soil organic matter. We want to improve gender equity and fairness in labour, production and marketing. So this is an example here. At the moment, in the race to scale up renewable energy, we're doing a lot of ecological damage. So these are examples where we're clearing rainforest in Asia and Brazil. But not only that, these areas have uncontacted tribes that we are really causing genocide, destroying them and their civilizations. For nickel, for renewable energy, for electric car batteries. Another example, carbon credits. And we have one we call blood carbon, which we're seeing all over the world now, where traditional owners are being thrown off their land to pay for carbon credits for the large corporations so they can wheel and deal and trade. This is an example of Kenya, the Ogiek people, who have been the owners, the caretakers of this system since time immemorial. And last year, we know at least 700 were thrown off. Quite a lot of them were killed, and their houses are being burnt down. Now, this is the wrong way about it. What we need to do is say that these people are the custodians, they're the managers of these precious ecosystems. They also have really important cultures. We need to, instead of kicking them out and destroying their civilizations and their forests, we need to start paying them for the ecosystem services of being the custodians and the managers. We need to change the way, getting rid of industrial systems to nature-based. How do we do it? Well, as Rudolph said, polluter pays. And so the corporations, organisations and individuals, they pay for the service of removing CO2. So we pay the people who are fixing up the biodiversity, fixing up the planet. And there's trillions of dollars in this space in what's called ESG, environmental, social and governance, and then in all the various climate funds. There's trillions in this space. We just need to get a bit of it our way. It's fee for service. It's not a tradable commodity. We pay doctors and we pay dentists and mechanics, plumbers, a fee for their service. We should be paying ecosystem managers fees for their service instead of taking it for granted. At the moment, governments, including the EU, and corporations are spending billions on industrial factories, plants to remove carbon dioxide. At the top's a picture of the largest one that's just opened in Iceland. A lot of EU funding, billions gone into it. We have a better technology. They're called plants. Plants are the best carbon dioxide removal plants. And plant leaves are the ultimate CO2 removal technology. They're solar powered, they use solar energy to combine carbon dioxide and water to make glucose, the most important molecule of life. And glucose in long chains makes cellulose, wood. 95 to 98% of a plant's body, its biomass, made from glucose, from carbon dioxide and water. When a plant grows, around 30% of these molecules of life are excreted from the roots into the soil microbiome. So by growing plants, we take the carbon dioxide out of the water and we put it into the soil. And this is where we start bringing in new systems. And these systems exist. This is one in Australia now we call pasture cropping. Instead of ploughing up or spraying out all the plants as weeds, we graze them down, cut them, strip till into them, and as a result we're getting really high rates of carbon sequestration. This particular farmer is paid by the Australian government. First year did 11 tonnes of carbon dioxide per hectare. Next year increased it to 13. What does that mean if we scale it up, across agricultural lands? The back of the envelope calculation, 55 gigatons, 55 billion tonnes. Our goal is to get over 28. This is one of my favourites. It's a farm, less than 1 hectare in California, Singing Frogs Farms. It's certified organic, it uses agroecological systems. Instead of ploughing again, they plant in mulch and compost. Highly productive. But where this is important is that the majority of the world's farms are 2 hectares or less. This applies to over 500 million farmers around the world, farming families. If we could scale this up, we're talking about removing 179 gigatons. Remember, 28's the goal, 6 times. So we don't need to change every farm. If we can change a percentage, we can go negative. Same with grazing. 68% of our agricultural lands are rangelands, so not cropping lands. They're unsuitable for cropping, and they're some of the most degraded ecosystems on the planet. We change the management. We can regenerate these ecosystems cool down the areas, increase production, and in terms of the amount of carbon dioxide we can sequester. This is just one study. They looked at 29 tonnes of carbon dioxide per hectare. I have other studies that show this. If we scaled this up on rangelands, we're looking at just under 100 gigatons. So we don't need to change at all. But if we could do 1/3, we go negative. So these are just 3 systems. I could do a whole presentation all day with all these innovative systems we have. We have lots of ways that we can do this. It's getting it scaled up. So what we've done for us, we want to use certification to put integrity into it. And organic certification is the oldest and most reliable. And so we'll do it by third party and PGS. We need measuring, reporting, and verification. We have these systems. We've actually put many, many years in getting them up. Critically, and this is your role, education and training is the basis of giving farmers this knowledge. And then the other thing we've done, and I can see it's on the discussion, we looked at all the standards, and the climate change standards like the gold standard, Vera, are not fit for purpose. In fact, we call them greenwashing standards. And organic standards aren't really fit for climate change. So we've developed our own fit for purpose. It's a base standard, and then any certifier, if you're in the EU, you can then be certified to the EU regulation, the US, the USDA, Japan, JAS, so on. But it opens the door for all these farmers to be organically certified. So we put credibility into the system. We have pilot programs. We already started pilots, and the next year or 2 we will scale it up properly. We wanted to see how it works. So this is an example in Mexico, in Oaxaca, and it's forest-grown coffee, and these are some of the most biodegraded areas. So we are regenerating these ecosystems. By doing that, we cool the climate. We've taught the farmers how to increase yields, increase their income. The system now is removing carbon dioxide, and because of increased yields, we've improved the climate, we've increased the money, we are regenerating the communities as well. So it's landscape and community. They go hand in hand. So measuring, reporting, and verification is critical, because in this area, unfortunately, there's so many scams and greenwashing. We really need to have good systems. And this is an example of one of our pilots in Wisconsin. And what we do there, you can see we do the farm map, we have where we do the soil samples, where we measure the biodiversity of the trees and plants, and where we measure bird calls. So what we're using now, for instance, for measuring biodiversity is LiDAR. And this is the LiDAR we're using. It's cheap, effective, low cost, but it is more accurate than any other system. We can measure accurately the growth of every tree, but not only that, know every species, what is happening through using this and AI. Similarly, our proxy for animal biodiversity is to use bird calls. Simple and cheap. Just have microphones, AI to recognize them. We can see, are the bird numbers going up or are they going down? That lets us know, is biodiversity increasing or decreasing? It's a really good proxy. So finally, I just want to end on this, is that we see paying for ecosystem services as an incentive to transition a proportion of landholders to best practice, agroecological, regenerative, and organic, the 3. We can remove enough carbon dioxide to start reversing climate change. By regenerating forests and also bringing in agroforestry systems, we can cool the climate. Really importantly, we produce higher yields of healthy food instead of the junk, toxic food, and we regenerate our communities' health, climate, and environment. And the really important thing I want to say is that we don't have to invent anything. All these systems are already out there. They're shovel ready. We just need to give incentive to scale them up. Finally, I'll just end with, it's a book that the late Ronnie Cummings, I have written, will be published by Chelsea Green in September this year, and that's where we go into great detail about this system. So if you're interested in learning more, this book will be out in September. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for sharing your vision and empowering us in getting to a feeling, well, it's possible. It could be done, and we can start right now. Nothing has to be invented, but a lot has to be developed. So we're talking about that with friends. Please come over here. And we'll invite the others, reset the stage. If you like, you get some water. It's in here. We have 4 chairs. Here we go. Good. Our first guest on stage is... Okay. Is Sheila Darmos. So Sheila, please come up here. Sheila is a farmer. She works on the family-owned organic farm in Greece. She has been active with regenerative and agroecological principles and methods to best find solutions adapted to her local context for the ecological, social, and economic dimensions. What I found in your vita, Sheila, we couldn't talk yesterday, what I found in your vita very interesting is that you work on the ground with the multiplicity of farmers, practicing different approaches for regenerating the soils and starting to mitigate climate effects to regenerate your bioregion in terms of biodiversity and at the same time create a market for it. The focus now for our discussion is how to bring this vision Andrew shared with us in the market. Partially, I noticed that there is public money involved so far to pay, but maybe we can go more deeply in our discussion now to identify other means to create markets for ecosystems services farmers can deliver. So, Sheila, to start with a brief resonance to what you perceived with Andrew's presentation, please take the mic and just share what struck you or what stays with you.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation, first of all, and for the presentation, Andrew. Yeah, so what struck me was actually the negative effects that, again, carbon credits have. And I think there you can see clearly that if we don't support companies that actually change their mindset, no matter what tool we use, it's going to be misused, I think. Yeah, that made a big impression on me. And yeah, I think we really need to create ways to bring closer together and to close the gaps between consumers and producers so that we are actually in close contact with the reality and that we can spot opportunities and create solutions. And things are actually more simple. We have just to get a bit over all these barriers and these labels and to actually dive into each other's realities to find and create solutions that work for all of us, actually, because there are many different contexts, and what works in my case, in my farm, in my region with my farmers, might not work in France or in Italy. So it's really important that we actually go this step, and I think it's also what we need even in our personal lives. Like, we need more this connection with the farmer and with where the food comes from. Our kids need it. So yeah, it's a simple step, but we don't do this so often.
Thanks very much. It also struck me the blood carbon, like you labeled it, and listening to you, you share a more deeper insight with us for getting this vision into practice on a broader scale, not only localizing it, but being connected, building up new relations between producers and consumers, this prosuming systems which locally work more easily than on a global scale. Thank you so much. So our next guest and resonator is Walter. Walter Link, please come here. Walter is an entrepreneur, social business developer since more than 40 years. I'm happy that he is with us because he's always looking to be in service for nature-based solutions to become practical on a larger scale. He's, in a way, our scaling up man in here. We got to know each other some 25 years ago, or even longer, when Walter inspired me to write a book on social business and social entrepreneurships, one movement at that time he was part of developing globally. And now you are so deeply involved in agriculture, also on a global negotiation level at the COPs, which is admirable to my mind, to put these topics we are dealing with on the political agenda on a global scale. So he's the host together with Helmi, who will be on stage tomorrow here, Helmi Abolesh, in really involving small-scale agriculture and peasants in this movement, so that it's not a new elite out there, but it's a global movement. So, Walter, very warm welcome to you. And similar question: what resonates? What landed watching Andrew's presentation?
Yeah, I think that we need to build a new mainstream for agriculture. This is not anymore about projects that we can all feel very proud about. This is about considering how do you actually move the whole system so that we create a new normal, right? So together with all of you and all of us, we want to build this, and this is what you were addressing, that's what you are working on, and that's what many of you here are deeply involved in. So I think if we look through that perspective, how to create somehow was only the people we like in the corner, we have to look at the whole world and say, almost everybody will have to join us. How can we make that happen? And I myself was confronted with that 35 years ago, where Theo also played an important role because I took over our family farm, and it was a polluting, chemical, very traditional farm. And I wanted to build a model for organic regenerative farming that would also outperform financially, because knowing farmers there and around the world, they are the quintessential business people. If you do not address the fact that they need to run a business, and of course in the Global South this means at the edge of survival, are my children going to school? Do we have health care? Do we have enough food to eat? So if we do not address that economic dimension, we can forget about scaling. So fortunately, with your help, we were able to build a model that still now is resilient and has inspired many other farmers to also, in their own way, adapt and find a way to join the organic regenerative movement. Now we are doing that around the world with partners like Vijay Kumar, who you heard yesterday from the Andhra Pradesh community-led natural farming, which is another very important term because there are already 1 million farmers doing this, and there will be up to 120 million in India alone if we are successful over the next decades. And we are looking how to scale adapted forms of that in partnership with local partners in Asia and Africa and Latin America, possibly even in Europe, to learn from each other the best ways of doing things. And it's amazing that, for example, Vijay and my other very close brother, Helmi, who you will meet if you haven't yet met him, hadn't met each other, right? Because we are all so busy working on our own projects that often we don't spend real extensive quality time. So through this meeting, we then traveled together with Helmi to India. We are now looking how to bring the Indian farming to Egypt, besides all the other countries, but also how to bring the learning from Egypt to India, because we spoke about carbon credits, right? So there are very destructive carbon credits, and there are also ways of compensating farmers for eco-services that at the moment we all benefit from, but we don't pay for. Right? So if we really want a fair economy, we also need to somehow find ways to compensate farmers, indigenous communities, and others who take care of the world for us to bring a fair contribution. How can we do that? You talk about market mechanisms. This is a market mechanism. So Helmi will tell about this more, but in Egypt, the reason why the farmers were shifting from chemical agriculture to biodynamic in that case was because through this whole system, carbon compensation, whatever you want to call it, they now have more money in the pocket. Now, once they became part of this movement, they also discovered how wonderful it is to be part of the movement because, of course, farmers care about money, but they care about life. They care about community, right? So we cannot kind of cut this all into pieces. We need to find solutions that speak to the whole system, to the complexity who we are as human beings, and to the complexity of nature. So we can't only look at carbon, we have to look at biodiversity, at water, at quality of food, at health, because in fact, life is only one system. Only with our mind can we cut it apart. So maybe this is a beginning.
Yeah, of our conversation here. Thank you, Walter. Indeed, you talked about the necessity of creating learning platforms and exchange on a farmer-to-farmer level. That's part of our global learning system you are investing in with Helmi and others, and the Now Partners, which is an organization you also co-founded, an organization of well-established advisors all across the globe who assist in doing that on the ground. I'm really looking forward to become part of that movement with the Academy over here also in assisting over the lines and the borders of the World Organic Forum or the bioregion Hohenlohe. There's a lot to do out there, and thanks that you are with us. Our last panelist for this first panel this morning will be Bernhard Freier. Bernhard, please come up here. Bernhard is well-versed agroecological expert, professor of organic agriculture at the BOKU in Vienna for a long time, and now working in the University of Continuous Education, Krems, Austria. Bernhard is also assisting us over here in developing a system of more climate-friendly pig husbandry and integrating the whole chain under the regime of mitigating CO2, and I'm happy that you now can share your perspective, your resonance to what you just noticed, André, invited us to dig deeper into.
Thank you. André, you gave us the umbrella in the big figures, so to say, and I try to add a bit, I try to make it systematically. Mau catchment. I was in the time at Egerton University, and we established a project with the title Organic Farming with Trees, that the people understand the message of these tribes. There were 3 other tribes with different settings, market-oriented, animal husbandry-oriented, etc., etc. It's a lifestyle where we have to talk, as my colleague here said. We have to understand the lifestyle from the tribes. Here we are also tribes, so to say. We have to understand that, then we can start to think about transformation, transition, whatever. Then we can start to think about regeneration. I started with regenerating farms, I would say, 46, Rudolf helped me. My internship at your farm was 1979. 1979. And we were thinking about farming, we were fighting, we were discussing a lot. And at the end, my PhD with support of Hardy Vogtmann in Witzenhausen was about conversion. Today we talk about regeneration. I was talking about always a bit different wordings about repair shop. When I came to the farms, I thought, what the hell is going on here? And yes, we have to repair the whole system. The whole system must be regenerated. Yeah, it was a bit another wording. And later on, I was here also in the region at Hohebuch, a civil servant, and I was engaged as helping farmers with diseases, whatever. Physical diseases was the intention. I have to support farmers. But the reality was, I was in 17 farms, it was about the psychological issue. It was about life philosophy. And this was the entry point of the human diseases, and this was the entry point of failure to deal with the soils, the crops, and the animals. Yeah? So it was an eye-opener. It has a lot to do with the psychological approach, a lot with the social embeddedness, and I come back to the systems approach. In science, we have, unfortunately, this separation between the social and the natural science. This is nonsense, because we have to think together, and we have many, many approaches where it is practiced to do that. In the audience, I recognized there are several entry points, projects. Some work, for example, at the level of huge food companies, yeah, to enter and to make a change in the mindset of the people. Others, they start, like the bioregion, from the ground. Others come from another perspective. Organic has another roots, like regenerative. Everybody is highlighting an entry point, and I think this makes sense because different reflections and ideas are coming together. What was first, I don't know. We should not forget the IFRM principles. The IFRM principles include such a lot about ethics. And once I made the work to compare these principles with Benedictine rules and with the 10 Commandments, you will find very interesting parallels. And I'm convinced with other religions, we will find parallels. So not everything is new about ethics. Yeah? No, it's not. But we overlook in our lifestyle this foundation of an ethical view. And based on that, we automatically, I think we end up automatically starting with the soil, logically. Yeah. At the end of our life, I was with the children in this funeral, and explained them what is a funeral, and that we end up in soil, and where we are then. It was a complex discussion. It's about soil, of course, Now we reinvent parts of it, but I think we always have to look what is already written, what is already formulated, and we will discover very valuable insights how to deal with us, with nature, with food. Food and regenerative is an interesting entry point, and our topic is the market. Regenerative, not only agriculture, but also our health. Hypothesis. It's a good market approach. Regeneration of our body with organic food. So there is a game of wording, and marketing can push that. Entry point to our main title of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. You also stressed a whole systems approach. Of course, I like the ethical approach, being an agricultural ethicist at the Humboldt University myself, but I'd like to start here with a whole systems approach because this is our common ground in terms of the worldview we share. Either the whole is going to change for better in terms of nature-positive solutions being implemented, or we might go down the drain, at least as a human species. So talking about a whole systems approach, I'd like to ask you, who is missing? Who is missing to be regarded, esteemed, appreciated as a part of a solution? Maybe this group of stakeholders, in my mind, finance, for example, the banking system, the insurance system, also earning a lot of money here along the lines of farming, has to be included. But maybe some others have to be included. And I also invite you in the audience just to make up your mind how many parts are in this whole system to be addressed, how many different interest groups are out there to be involved. Whoever could see the film Our Common Ground last night got a tiny impression. There are much more than only chemical industry involved here, or governments, or NGOs, or consumers. The whole area of logistics is involved here, as well, to mention one, as well as the whole area of technologies to be developed. And of course, the military has to be addressed also. Food is part of warfare, isn't it? So just to make up our mind, my question here is, whom would you like to be involved next time in the World Organic Forum to really make a leap forward? Just one interest group you have in mind. You don't have to reason for it, just share. Andrew, who should be with us?
Is that working? Yeah. Consumers, because...
Consumers.
Consumers. Because consumers, their spend drives the money. As a farmer, my wife and I, we're long-term farmers, but if it wasn't for consumers who buy our product, we would have nothing. And it's what we call the intelligent consumer, the people who make a choice that drive change. That changes companies and what they offer. So And I want to get back to what actually Bernhard said. What drives consumers? When I was president of IFOAM, I used to get every study, and the one thing they all had in common was health is the major driver. And actually, when we broke down health, number one was avoiding pesticides and GMOs. Number two was nutrition. But health is the driver and getting consumers. And I think that's something that we can use, really, to bring all the systems together. The other thing I just want to say too, people talk about a supply chain. It's not a chain, it's a complex web. Mm-hmm. And all of the actors in this web have roles, and we need to look at how we are inclusive, not exclusive, to make sure that we can get global systems change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, maybe just one quick round here, and then we can...
so I would like to mention logistics providers, because this is something we struggle a lot with in Greece. Like if you want to diversify your farm and have more products, but less quantity of one product, it's very difficult to ship it actually all around Europe. So this is a real obstacle we have to find solutions for. And then maybe I can mention also the policymakers that we struggle a lot with in Greece as well. There are some regulations which are really not supporting the transitions. They just put a lot of obstacles which are actually lacking any kind of justification. And it seems to be a big time investment to change those policies. And there is no time for everything. Will you farm? Will you create the markets? Will you take care of policies? We're very few people left in Greece, actually, which is another challenge. Like half of the country is empty, everybody left. So we have too much to take care of, actually. Yeah.
Thank you. Walter.
Since two very important groups, or several were already addressed, I'll add to it what you talked about the finance world, right? Which has, of course, the government is the biggest player in some ways in this system, especially in Europe, right? So the policymakers are not just policymakers, they also provide a tremendous amount of finance. If you can reorient these streams of finance, you actually come to different market conditions, because you also talk about markets, and we, rightly about true cost, true value that is created, ecosystem service and so forth. But then there is the current reality. And in the current reality, you then have the whole private sector in finance that needs to perform and succeed like the farmer, like the company, like everybody else that is part of the commercial part of the market, the finance system of the market. They all need to perform under the current system successfully, while we are working to transition to a fairer, true cost, true value system. And this takes people that are willing and capable to play successfully now, and yet are visionary to move us to the next stage of the market. And so I think it's not only which category of people we bring, which sectors, but who are the sectors, who are the people in the sectors, the institutions in the sectors that actually are doing the work concretely on the ground right now with this perspective where we really want to go or need to go.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Bernhard, who should be organizing one level playing field for the future of food systems? Should be involved.
I had the chance yesterday evening to talk with Lauren Tucker. She's with us. She will tell by herself later, but I make it short. Of course, working with these food companies. The food companies, they make the game. They make the game. That's clear. One approach is from the basis, bottom up. Regionalized systems, food systems. Everybody is able to help each other. Everybody knows each other. Yeah? You need the direct social contact to get this motivation to transform something. The other level is on top, in addition to the governments, these are these huge companies. They play the game. And the same is here, not only in US, here in Europe is the same as, you know, I have not to mention these companies. And once I was on a podium with these huge companies, and they made a competition who made the most money with organic products today. It was funny. And then I said, wonderful, so it must be not a problem for you both to offer me 1 million for research. And then they start crying. We are poor, they said. Yeah, but we have to start with those people, with their system, worldview, to enter and to invite them for the discussion. When we exclude them, there will be no step forward. We have to transfer the knowledge. We have to find ways of communication to integrate them in the debate. Otherwise, they are outside. As the social scientist Luhmann was saying, people I do not communicate, they don't exist. And that is the truth. Yeah? So only the people we communicate, they exist for us. Vice versa. And we have to start strategically the communication with these large companies. Even these are huge elephants, and maybe once they are dinos and they are sorted out, whatever, I don't know. But I think this is a very important entry point.
And especially working with them, addressing the buyers, because they make the deals with the farmers and the company, and they are the core group, and they are all the hidden champions, so to speak. They don't want to be perceived because they do the blood work in a way. We just had a major article in the site on them for the vegetable area, and for the fruits, the buyers have to be addressed. So we now perceive that markets are really a complex system, and are the drivers of the whole system in terms of bringing up change or scaling up. And there are different groups of actors who should be invited to the World Organic Forum next time to discuss with us further developments to localize SDGs around food and the whole food chain. Being a bit more precise now, addressing the market, I would like to listen to your views on the reality at the moment that, at least in Germany, the organic market is only growing due to discount. So the discount on all the values we might like to share is on its way. So there's some constraints to my mind in here between being driven by health and other values the consumer wants to be addressed, and at the same time organizing around the price war. Not yet, and not yet with every and each discount, but maybe in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So the economy behind that is an economy of scale. Once organic is scaling up, then the prices will fall. So how would you address that?
Thanks. It's actually a critical issue, and I just want to say that as a farmer, the money we get as a percentage of sale price gets less and less. 100 years ago, 80% of the sale price went to farmers. Now we're looking, in some sectors, it's down as low as 5%.
No,
5% to farmers. And I remember, we'd look at the higher price that's paid for organic, and as an organic farmer, I'd look at it and go, hang on, I'm not getting that. Nothing like it. At the moment, the bulk of this final price goes to the trade. The trade squeezing, we talk about the discount shops. They squeeze what the farmer gets. And we're losing farmers everywhere. I can say here in Europe, I remember when, once again, as president of IFOAM, I get all the statistics, and what we could see was the number of hectares is increasing, but not at the same rate as farmers. And I'd speak with family farmers, organic farmers, and they were no longer being certified because it was a cost. And we're seeing small farmers struggling. And what we're really seeing now here in Europe and everywhere are farmers across the board revolting because they are no longer getting the terms of trade. And the way around it, what we did, my wife and I, we were involved in other farmers and did our own marketing groups, took control of our marketing and got the prices. And it really gets down to organising farmers, empowering farmers, and putting us on an equal footage with the market so that we get a fair price for what we do.
This is in resonance with what Sheila said some minutes ago, creating regional markets, go more for direct marketing of these products. Sheila.
Yeah, so I also can't really answer to your question because it's not really part of my lived reality. We don't really engage with big distributors of organic produce in Europe, at least. Yeah, we invest really more in smaller scale, more direct communication market chains, because also it's true what you said, that who doesn't communicate doesn't exist, and there I see also a big problem between a big communication gap and the way farmers communicate and the way the consumers eventually in Germany can understand what actually the farmer is saying. Like in rural Greece, I perceive this gap to be very big. So actually, I think we need to create rather less intellectual ways, but more experiential ways of coming together. And because then if you bring the consumer actually on the farm, the communication can happen. Like you, instead of discussing on a very meta level on conferences where a farmer anyway would never come, or very few farmers. So yeah, I think we should also question what kind of systems are we investing when we are going towards this transition, and do we really need to go for big-scale distributors of regenerative products, or is it really the wrong way to go? And then also on the other hand, what is the work really meaningful in those companies? Like even looking at the employees of such companies, I think the more you are far from the ground and from the front, the less you are in connection with actually the purpose and the mission of the company. So I think breaking it down into smaller groups, smaller working groups, smaller chains will actually benefit also, like everybody in the value chain. And the communication will be multidimensional rather than being just like words that we are like, okay, what is actually the meaning of this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Looking to India and the Andhra Pradesh project, where many smallholder farms are involved. Yesterday we learned about 1 hectare is the size of the farms, and they are now creating more local markets. Or how do they go about in terms of marketing, not only that they have enough food for the families, self-supplying, but also to create an overflow to be marketed? What's the experience you can share here, especially from India, because there are already more farmers involved than in Sikkim, and we talk about Sikkim tomorrow.
So in this Andhra Pradesh community-led natural farming that started 7 years ago only, was 40,000 farmers. Now there are 1 million. How can you scale something so significantly in such a short time, especially considering that there was not a single rupee spent on subsidies, and they have no price premium? They sell in the local market, so they have food for themselves. They sell in the local market, and to the degree of interest, they also sell to national and international markets. But I think, topic that we need to address also is, and I know it's a challenging topic, is productivity. This methodology helped to generate much greater productivity than the Indian farmers were able to produce through chemicals. It reduced, therefore, significantly their cost because they lost all their chemical costs. And if you have greater productivity and reduced cost, the result is much greater profit. And this can be, on average, between 56 to 80% in 2 large studies that we did. And it can be, for individual farmers, several times the income. Then you understand how something scales from 40,000 to 1 million in 7 years, and how we can have a perspective to make it the new mainstream of agriculture in India, and why 46 nations came visiting the project and want our help to bring this there. If you allow me, I will also give you 2 examples from Brazil, because we are also going to hear from Africa and other places, and also from Brazil, to bring in larger scale farming and also a cooperation, just as examples. So in Brazil, you have a company called Native. They have a tremendously regenerative way of farming, 23 different certifications, including regenerative organic rock. And they outperform the most sophisticated GMO and chemical farmers in their region, which is Sao Paulo state, one of the most sophisticated agricultural region and productive regions in the world. They can outperform them very significantly in the productivity. And the value is also created because they offer a story, because consumers don't only buy the product. I have here a Patagonia backpack. People are willing to pay more for this backpack because they're not buying the backpack. They're buying the story of Patagonia that also provides a backpack. And the same is true there. So all the big brands want to be involved, but also they are offering their brand to hundreds of other farmers who are producing organically, so that with this joint brand, they can sell in the Brazilian market, and people want to buy that brand, that story. Lastly, Natura, which is the largest Latin American cosmetics and beauty company, they work with their entire supply ecosystem, because you're exactly right, it is that, and they are helping people in the Amazon forest to produce not only and then sell the product, but to actually move the production of oils and pastes into their community so that they can actually have more money, and it's actually also better for the companies. So we can find models that work economically to achieve what we want to see in the world as a better world.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a message of hope. Thank you, Walter. Yeah, please. Share with all.
Markets. Not far from here, Family Bühler established a regional market in a huge dimension. So it's a platform for all kinds of ecological products. It's possible. Yeah? It's an economic challenge, I know, from both. It's a hard and tough job, but this is possible, and I think we have to play with different dimensions. Yeah, we should be realistic, but I want to say that. Then, in addition, what was said, we have yield potential, let's say, I generalize now in Africa, from producing 1 ton, whatever product it is, inclusive meat and milk, up to 3 tons per hectare. And we can do that, so to say, with relatively simple, it doesn't matter how you name it, agroecological practices or whatever, everybody knows what I mean. Yeah, from 1 to 3 tons per hectare on average is possible. There are so many trials that have been established over the last decades. A lot of knowledge is gone, is lost, because it was not fixed by the electronics, so to say, all the research before 1990s. I was with the CGRs in Nairobi. I was asking about forage legumes. And the researcher was saying, look around, close to the entry, these huge boxes, all the research about forage legumes. Integrating forage legumes to make these 3 tons easily, really easily, no stress. And I go to a farmer, let's discuss how we make it. I turn around, I will come 1 year later, and they have these 3 tons. And I had PhD students with coffee in Uganda, Rwenzori Mountains, such a slope, sandy soils, rich in skeleton. We established Mukuna, we established Miletia tree, very simple trial, and after 3 seasons, 2 rainy seasons per year, the coffee yield was just double. Logically, I have not to make a trial. Yeah, this is natural science. It's pure natural science. And another trial in Ethiopia, we integrated forage legumes in the crop rotation. The yield was going up. But then there are many faults. pH is too low and the rhizobia cannot work. So you have to combine a strategy with organic manure, with liming, with alley cropping. Bioslurry is increasing the pH. It's not adding the calcium. So you have to think about a bit liming, yeah? It's basic, it's easy, it's simple, yeah? Otherwise, rhizobia cannot work. And the legumes currently, they disappear in Africa due to low pHs, and the rhizobia cannot work. So it's a stupidity, I would say. Yeah, it's, anyway. Finally, language again, with the consumers, with the farmers. I'm not sure if both, but specifically the farmers understand conservation agriculture, evergreen agriculture, regenerative, organic, biodynamic, permaculture, sustainable, climate smart, and so on, and so on, and so on. They just say, okay, so what? Yeah? My language is my crops, my trees, my animals, my compost. I have to know how to keep the nutrients in my compost. Actually, in the whole continent, more or less, the nutrient concentration in the compost, in the organic manure is extremely low, washed out, gone. Yeah? So click, 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 you adapt the system and it's increasing, but without legumes, no way. The same here, without legumes, no way. Yeah? This is the motor of the system. People ignore it. I just come into farms and look at this and say, come on, there is no need for research. Yeah? If you have a lot of weeds, there's no need for research. We know how to manage, how to orchestrate the system. Yeah? So, India, excellent in root exudates. In the other parts of the world, more or less not existing. The old humus theory is gone. They cancelled. Over decades, it was wrong. Science cancelled the humus theory. Now we start again, and the Indian scientists are very clever because now they talk about the microorganism. And the microorganisms, these are 2 tons per hectare, 100 times 100 meter, 30 centimeter, 2 tons of microorganisms, plus, minus, and the diversity. They are the players. Now they start thinking about that. Yeah? And this is what organic was, what regenerative, what biodynamic, what permaculture is pushing. Yeah?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for, on the one hand, simplifying it. Thank you. Yeah, give him a hand. Yes, please. On the one hand, simplifying it, on the other hand, addressing the local needs again. This brings us back in terms of practice and markets. And I love this phrase, my language is my soil. Wow, This is poetry. Thank you very much. We keep it for that. For the moment, we'll have a break till 11:30. There's coffee served out there and refreshments, and 11:30 we'll go even more deeper in how to bring more money to the farmers by financing their ecosystem services, their value added they create. So thank you to the panelists, and we'll have you around either in the workshops or around here. Please start your conversations with them.
The world on a string, sitting on a rainbow, got the string